Hey guys, so let's look at a problem. This is Travis Gillespie here, and we're going to look at a problem of some data that were taken at a school. And the number of students in each section of psychology and Spanish at a large university are given below. So I could see psychology, their classes, their section classes have 245 people, 270, 286. So you can see these are really large classes. And for Spanish, 277, 281. And I really want to say something about these classes, but the classes are so large, the data is so large, it really seems like I can't even parse it at all. Remember, to parse it is to break it up into large information into small bits that will help you make sense of something. Well, it turns out this is an example where you're given data to where you may want to present it using a back-to-back stem and leaf plot. Well, here's the idea of using a back-to-back stem and leaf plot. What we're going to do is see if we can find the frequency. Let me draw this up of the various sizes. Um, Hopefully this will work out. There we go. Alrighty. There we go. So I'm going to call this guy, well, I'm going to call this guy psychology. And then let's call this guy Spanish. So again, the first goal is let's see if we can get an idea of the frequency of various numbers and sizes. So the first question is, hey, how are you actually going to measure this? Some people might say, hey, let's use 200s. They all seem to have 200s. But if you choose the 200s as your starting position, you can't really refine it. So you move on and say, hey, because everything's 200 and something, but let's look at the actual tens and say, well, 200 and what? Well, let's see what. So rather than taking a look at the first digit, let's look at the first two digits, the two digits that come first. And you begin to see that, hey, 20, 240, 270, 260. Let's look at the lowest. 230 is the lowest here. And it looks like 239 is the lowest here. So you get some refinement once you move on to the first two digits. So I'm going to change color here. I'm going to write our stems. And that did not change the color like I wanted. Try it again. There we go. So here's our stems. And we're going to begin with the 230s. Remember that although I wrote 23 here, it really stands for 230 and then something. And then all I'm just going to do is increase them from there. So now I've got 24, which would be 240s, 25, 26, 27, it looks like 270, 286 will be my largest one, and I don't go up to 290s. So let's take a look at how to fill one of these in. We'll go up to psychology first, and let's go and look at the 250s here. Uh, I said 250s. Let's look at 260s. And I see 261 will be a good one to start with. I'm going to change colors here, and I'm going to put a 1 right there because I'm put it under psychology. And the first thing I want to notice is I'm not reading this as 126. I'm reading this as my stem first, and then here's my leaf. Remember, stem and leaves, stems and leaves. Here's another set of leaves. Well, this is sort of back to back. I'll show you in a second what I'm talking about. But instead of reading this as 126, you're reading at 261. Okay, am I done with my 60s? No, I've still got 267, 267. And remember, I want to not only put it down once, but also write down the second 267 because I want to get the overall total. I want to get a cumulative look of all of the data. So now let's start. Actually, one last thing here, what you'll notice is, hey, this is kind of looking like it's backwards. However, if I were to, look at one Spanish one real quick at the 60s here, well, I've got at least a 260, which I'm crossing out right here. And, well, if I were to actually cover up this section of psychology, what you would end up having is, oops, let me just do it real quick for you. If I were to just cover this whole section up that I'm highlighting in blue, well, everything off to the right would actually be the Spanish section. The Spanish section would actually be a stem and leaf plot. However, psychology is tacked on to the back of it, so we call this a back-to-back stem and leaf plot. So still reading through. Let's go out. I'm going to just fill this through pretty quick here. So 231, done with the 30s, 240 for my 240s, and 245. Any more 40s? No. How about 250s? Any 250s? No 250s. So now I can say 260s, which I have filled in. So I'm going to cross off the rest of the 260s. The 270s, well, I have one 270, so 270, which is red 270. And now the last number I'm left with is 286. Tack a 6 down. And now let's move on over to the Spanish. Well, let's look at the 230s. Got 235. So I'm going to put a 5. And now it's easier to see, hey, 2, 3, 5. Yeah, that's 235. We're done with the 230s. Let's move on to the 40s. So 242. I'm done with the 40s. Let's move on to the 250s. No 250s. So, and you know what? I realize I just missed a 30. So I'm going to add 239 over here for the Spanish. So 239. Any more 30s? Nope. And 60s. I've got my 60s. Any 270s? Well, first off, I've got a 268 off on the right that I should probably put down. 268, and now I have 275, but also 277. So I'll put both of those guys down, a 5 and a 7, and finally I'm left with 281 as my last value. So this is a back-to-back stem and leaf plot. So when you look at it, what does it actually say? Well, I can actually look at this now and say, well, my most popular size for classes for psychology, well, it's the 260s. I have 261, 267, 267. So the 260s are the most popular size for psychology classes. However, it's a little bit tougher to tell with the Spanish class. But if you look at this again, you see that with Spanish it's a little bit more difficult. It looks like I have a tie between the 230s and 260s and 270s. So it looks like those are the most popular sizes. So again, when looking at a stem and leaf plot or a back-to-back stem and leaf plot, it helps you to analyze, gather, organize, and interpret data.